Thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The first thing I want to ask you is, was there anything on the papers that you were trying to work on yesterday in class, or maybe hit a snag last night that you want me to answer the question? You're also welcome to keep those questions until after the lecture today, and we can always go back to any of the homework that we've already had. Okay, I don't care if you ask questions about today's stuff or any stuff that you might be working on. I also have not talked to you guys about the Essential Education website. I think Rebecca's on it. Yes. Are you all on Essential Education? Because I haven't talked to HIM students yet since I moved over.
I think I tried for a little bit and then I just didn't
They had to take you
understand
out.
it or something. I didn't have time, so it took me out.
Okay. If you decide that you want to do it again, I can set you up within just a few minutes.
Okay.
To get you back in. But one of the requirements to do Essential Education is that you'll be consistent.
Yeah.
And they also put something else into effect, because since we first started using this, some students will log on and then just leave. And it will log all this time that they're supposed to be working, but they're really not working. So they're kind of cheating the system. Okay. So they set an 8-minute limit. If you're not doing anything in 8 minutes, it shuts you out.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But if you guys want to do this Essential Education, do you know what this is, Naomi?
It's kind of like schoolyourself.com.
Yes.
It kind of resembles that.
And it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
What you can do is you do it in addition to class. And you get, for the time that you spend on it and work on it, you get those hours. I credit your hours because I can go in and see how long you've been on it and what kind of progress you've made. And from all of my students that have been on it, they said it's just awfully easy to work through. What do you think, Rebecca?
It is easy, but mine hasn't been recording my hours.
Oh, okay. You have to, if it's not recording your hours, there's been several. Maybe 4 people that have said that also. So text me your hours every time until we get this straightened out, and I'll give you credit for those hours.
I get on there, and then when I stay on there for like an hour, and then I get off, and I go back and check, and it didn't record it.
Do you have a record of the hours that you've done so far? Okay, start doing that, and I can give you credit for those hours until we can get that figured out. Okay? And again, Naomi, it is just a website that the school here has purchased. We purchased 100 seats for people that want to be in there. And I will give you the login and everything for you to get in. And then you can get on anytime you want to. Also, I figured out, it's about midnight, but I figured out how to send you recordings of the lecture. So I'm not going to keep sending them out to everybody, but what I do, I found out you can just send a link if somebody wants that. It's a private place, so I have to give you the link to that place. But if you decide you want to see it again, you know, just let me know. Okay? And those of you that are watching the recording, just let me know if you need a link to some of these. Okay? I'm hoping to move to the place that you have a folder up in YouTube, and you can go up there anytime as long as you're part of my class, and you can pick out any recording you want. But for right now, you just have to request it, and I'll send you a link. Okay. Sound good? Mm-hmm. Okay, are you ready to start today's lesson, or are there any questions from yesterday?
Is that what we're working on today?
Yes.
Equation?
We're going to start solving equations. Okay. We're going to do the basic solving equations. Usually I'm doing other stuff right here at the beginning, but I found out that we need to go ahead and teach you how to solve equations because it's the foundation, or it's where you end up anything that you're going to do in algebra and in geometry. You're going to end up solving an equation. So let's get that taken care of right now. Okay, everybody okay? So here's how I'll start. You know, on the front of the courthouse, I don't know if you all have noticed, usually in stone in the courthouse or on the front of a lawyer's office, there is a diagram or a picture of a blindfolded woman that kind of looks like Statue of Liberty, and she's holding up a scale, you know, that has these two little things, okay? She's holding up a scale. And what that's meant to indicate is balanced justice. But balance is our key word here, okay? And when I think about equations, I think about that scale. Now, in the olden times, when I went with my mom to the grocery store, if we were going to buy meat, there wasn't like a digital scale. There was a scale like this, and you'd say, I want this much meat. And so they put little weights on here that would add it up to how much weight I wanted in meat. And then they start putting the meat here until it balanced out. And then they knew that was the right amount of meat. Okay. So yeah, that was back in the dark ages. Okay.
I never knew that.
But that's what I think about.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's think of another example, because I always find myself referring back to this next example. If you went into the grocery store and maybe there was one of these scales, okay, and you, on the scale, you put a banana right here. What's going to happen to the scale?
It's gonna go down with the banana.
It's going to go down and it's going to be out of balance, right? Okay, how will you get it back into balance?
Halving it, the banana.
Have to do what?
Cut in pieces or something to level the balance.
Ooh, you're a forward thinker.
Yeah.
How would somebody else do that?
I would put weights on the other end. to
Oh,
make it
that's true.
balance.
Yeah.
That is exactly right. You've got to figure out some way to bounce this back. And I think, Jesus, you've got to sit up. Come on. I know you're very, very tired. If you can't stay awake, go out and get a drink. But if you're not going to be able to stay awake in class, I need you to go home.
No.
Okay? All right. If you need to get up and walk around, do it. All righty? You know I love you. All right. Okay, we're out of balance. There's a banana here. See, I go the easy way, and I would take another banana that is exactly the same size, exactly the same weight, and I would put it here, get it back into balance. Okay? Now that you have that picture in your mind, this is how we solve equations. Remember how we were finding common denominators, remember? And we would do something to the bottom, but we have to do something to the top. Anytime you do something one place, you've got to counterbalance the other side. And just like we were, what was it we were doing? Oh, when we were changing the division of fractions and we were changing it to multiply, you can't just change it to multiply. If you change this, you had to change this, right? So there is always something that balances out in math. You have to balance it out. So what I'm getting at now is this scale is what we're going to think about when we do equations. This place right here in the middle where she's holding it up is the equal sign. So there's one side of the equation. Here's the other side of the equation. We are welcome to do anything we want to this side. You can put a banana, you could put a watermelon over here, okay? But in order to make sure that it stays balanced, you've got to do the exact same thing on the other side. So, keeping that in mind, I'm going to show you the first one. Are we ready? Okay, I'm giving you a very easy equation right here because that's what I do when I'm trying to teach you the process. You need to see the process, and then you can apply that process to more difficult questions. So the very first thing that I want you to do for quite a while is I want you to tell your brain where this divides. And so we're going to always going to put a line down through the equal sign. It's like a fence line, and you're going to be able to see there's this side of the equation and this side of the equation that we have to keep balanced, okay? Now, the next thing that you have to remember is what opposite operations are. And you know most of them, okay? If I'm adding, what's the opposite operation of add? Subtract. Now, we're going to deal with these, so keep these in mind. What if I had multiply? What's the opposite operation? Multiply.
Multiply division.
Division, okay. Now, we will move on later on, and we will actually say if something is squared, and I want you to have this in your notes, but I will probably have to tell you again when we get to these. It'll be quite a while before we get to this. But if something is squared, the opposite operation is going to be square root. Okay, so kind of put that in the back of your mind and see how many of you remember when we get there. The opposite of squared is square root. Now, these opposites work the other way, of course. If I have something that I'm subtracting, then the opposite operation is going to be add, okay? We need to know about opposites in order to work our equation. Now, everybody can see that x is going to be equal to 4, but I'm going to show you the steps to get there. We have the line down through the equal sign, and whenever we have a letter in here, this is called a variable. I'll be using that word a lot. A variable is simply any of the letters that we happen to use. It doesn't happen to be it didn't have to be an X, but that's what I'll use most of the time. It can be a B or an M or a P, okay? It is a letter. The reason it's called a variable is because the value for an X can vary from problem to problem. In this one, the X is going to be 4. But when we do another problem, the X might equal a negative 17. Okay, it's a variable because the value of a letter varies from problem to problem. Okay,
And you got 4 because 4 plus 3 equals 7.
Yes.
Okay.
And the reason I went ahead and put this up here is because I know that that's what you all would do, because this is a simple problem that you can do in your head. I'm using the simple one so I can show you the steps so that you will be able to do the hard ones that you can't do in your head. All right? So now the next step will be, if I say to solve this equation, that means I want to get the variable all by itself. See in the answer? At the end, I want it to say x equals, the equals is going to be on the line. I want only the x to be here at the end, and I want it to have a value. That's what it means to solve. And I know that I'm finished doing the solving because I have the x by itself. Okay? I see a puzzled look. Is that your thinking?
Yeah, so like when you're solving it, you go below
There's
it and put the X down there or what?
No, I'm telling you what I want it to look like at the end. Okay,
Like that would be your answer.
that will
but
be
you
my
want your
answer. Yes.
Letter to be by itself.
Yes. Now, this was probably the only time I'll put the X down there first. I just want you to know when you're finished with this problem. Okay, now process. Here we go. I want the X by itself, so I'm going to leave the X alone. Since plus 3 is over here, and in the end, I don't want that plus 3 on this side. So this is where I use the opposite operation. This is a plus 3, and the only way I can get rid of it is to minus. The opposite operation is a minus 3. Okay? Now, what did I tell you about balance in equation?
You got to do the same on the other side.
That's exactly right. This is your banana. We put it on one side, it's all out of balance. If we go over here and do the same thing, then it's back in balance. You see? Okay. And always this plus 3 and minus 3. Remember when we talked about these are positives and these are negatives? Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And so I take out my 0 pairs, so it's gonna be 0, right? Which is what we want to happen. You don't have to put your 0 down here, it'll just be confusing. So this zeroes out. I put a line so we can see what our next step is gonna be. Our next step is we're just gonna add straight down, okay? So I still have an X on this side, but I don't have anything else on this side of the equal sign. Remember, if you'll keep your equal sign on the dotted line, then it will keep your steps straight and avoid confusion, okay? And then on this side, I've got 7 plus a -3, or you can say 7 minus 3. Remember, I told you that the negative and the minus work the same way, okay? So 7 minus 3 is 4. Now, in the next equations that we're going to do, probably some of them today, they're going to have more than one step. Like you get to this step, but the X still isn't by itself, so you've got to do some more and some more and some more. But you know that you're finished with this problem because the X is by itself. So you have solved your first equation. And if they say, solve this equation, you would say X equals 4. That's your answer. Easy enough, right? Let's do another one. Any questions on this one? Okay, I'm going to do another one that is just as simple. I'm going to put some bigger numbers in it. We're going to go very carefully because this is so important. It's foundational in algebra. So let's go ahead and use something else. B minus 6 equals 3. Okay, so what is the first step? The very, very first step.
Divide,
Draw your line.
draw your line.
Draw my line. Now, the reason for this, and I still use that, okay? But the reason for this is if you'll divide down here, then your brain starts to automatically see the two sides. If you don't put that there in the beginning, you'll start to try to put two things on this side instead of putting one thing here and one thing here. So use this line. It's not a baby thing. All right? That's the first thing. And the second thing is we find our variable. And if you'll circle it, that also tricks your brain into seeing what needs to be taken out. Okay, if I want this B by itself, what am I going to have to get rid of?
You need to get rid of the,
If I want the B by itself, what's messing that up right now?
The 6
The 6. And what's the sign on the 6?
minus.
It's minus. How am I going to get rid of a minus 6? A subtract 6.
You add
I have to add to get rid of it. So in my first step, I'm not going to touch the B. I'm going to leave it alone. It said leave me alone. Okay, so I'm going to add 6 here, but now my banana put everything out of balance, right?
do it
So
on
what
the
am I
other
going to do
side.
now?
Put the 6 under the 3.
I have to do exactly the same thing. Don't try to do an opposite sign over here. They have to be the same thing. Draw a line. This way it keeps your steps straight and it makes you stay in line, okay? So again, we have 6 blacks. We have 6 negatives and 6 positives. They all cancel each other out. You'll find out that this is always a 0 because that's what we plan to happen. So now we're going to add straight down, bring everything down. This is 0, so ignore it. We have a B left over here still. The equals goes on the line. 3 plus 6 is going to be 9. Am I done?
Yes.
How do I know?
Because you don't have no more,
no more variables or
I
No,
have that the variable is by
By itself.
itself. That's how I know. When the variable is by itself, then this, in this particular problem, this variable's value is 9 in this problem. Now a B in another problem might be something else. Okay? Are we getting it? Okay. Now I'm going to show you some variations of this particular problem so that it doesn't freak you out later. let's say that there's a problem that looks like this. Use new markers. 16 plus y equals about 3. Okay. Oh, good. Mary came. Hi, Mary.
Yes.
Morning, Mary.
Good morning.
16 plus y equals 3. First step,
Draw your line.
line. Second step,
Find your variable.
okay, and I messed up right there. I want to do this. You get the sign that goes with the variable.
Because it's on the right side.
It's always on the left side.
Left
That's
side,
the
I mean.
sign that goes with it. Okay, when I circle that, that says we're going to leave that alone, and that's what I want at the bottom. So what's messing this up? What is keeping it from being by itself?
The plus, and it's not in the
positive?
beginning of the.
The plus goes with this, so it's by itself. Actually, when you see a variable by itself, and don't let this confuse you right now, we'll talk about it later, but if you see a variable by itself and it doesn't have a number in front of it, there's always an invisible one. So this is 1y. It's a positive 1y, okay? But we don't write it. So we'll get more into that. You won't be. This plus goes with the 1y. So we don't do anything with this. But see this outsider? Still over here in Y's house, and we want him to go home. Go home. So what's the sign on the 16? Remember, if there's not a sign, it's positive. Good job, Jesus. Okay, it's positive. How am I going to get rid of a positive 16?
Subtracting.
Subtract 16. You see? Now, at this point, when some of my students are trying to get rid of something, they say, oh, here's a 3. I'm going to subtract 3. I don't want you to get mixed up there. That's why we circle the variable, and we're going to work on the variable side, not the other side. Okay, so we work on this side, and we see who needs to go home. Okay, so we're going to subtract 16. Next step,
Subtract 16.
subtract 16. Now, we know that a positive and a negative are the same numbers. And now we add straight down the things we have left. We have a y. This is a positive 1y, which means we're going to be done when we get here. The equals goes on the line, and now we're going to add here. Now you need to apply your rules that we talked about, negatives and positives, okay? If the signs are different, what do you think? Okay, so it's going to be negative because of the higher number. And what do you think when the signs are different? Think
The higher number.
subtract.
Oh,
Okay,
subtraction.
yes. And you are right on the higher number. Okay? But you think subtract so we can get this number. What's the difference between 16 and 16? You see why we did negatives and positives before we came here? And so you look at our problem. In this case, it was only one step. You look at this problem and you say, oh, the y is by itself on its side. That means I'm done. That's how you know when you're finished that y, the value of y in this problem is a negative 13. Yes? This will become such second nature to you. Okay, let's practice again. How about this one? How about 23 equals x minus 2. Notice that the x is on the other side, but this shouldn't give you any problem at all because we're going to apply the same. It's you're not going to change what you do when you solve equations. So, first step, draw a line down
Find your variable.
find the variable, and we're going to circle it so our brain knows leave that alone. At the bottom, we want that by itself, or we have a straggler bothering him, right? So what am I going to do to get rid of that straggler?
Put it on the other side?
In a minute, how am I going to get rid of it? You are correct, but you jumped a step. I have to get rid of it by doing the opposite operation, plus. Now next, Irene,
You put it on the other side and add it
Yes.
to the 20.
I have to do exactly the same to the other side. This is my banana, and then I got to put another banana here. So now, a plus and a minus of the same number, zero out. Now we're going to add straight down. You notice that the rules, the steps don't change. They don't change at all. 25 equals x. Now that the x is by itself, it doesn't matter which side it's on, just as long as it's by itself. This means exactly the same thing, that the value of x in this problem is 25.
Is this kind of like, because I remember when I first started and I was orientation, she was teaching us that if she put something on top saying m plus b equals,
Oh,
is that the same thing?
you
to
will
this or
be
no?
using that steps then, but what you're talking about will be later on in our curriculum. It's equations of a line.
Okay.
Okay? And actually, we will touch on some of that solving, but not until next week.
Okay.
Okay?
I
This-
thought it was the same.
Yes, just with extra steps and extra variables.
Okay.
We will teach you how to do this when it has more than one variable. Maybe it'll have an X here and a Y over here, and we'll find out how to do that. But don't worry yourself right now.
Okay.
Okay, let's get these basics. And yes, that's an excellent question. It's Y equals MX plus B, right?
There, yes,
There
ma'am.
it is.
Mhm.
That's the equation of a line, and that's when we start graphing and writing
Oh, good.
equations of lines.
Okay.
So that's a little bit later on. It's not scary, I promise. Okay, one more, and then I want to move to multiply and divide and show you how to work that, okay? Let's do one more. Okay, you guys do it first. Remember your first step, your second step, then work it.
Draw a line in the middle. Circle the variable.
Okay, I'm going to start working it. Don't look up until you get done with yours. Okay? Don't look up.
I already got that.
Okay.
When you say not to do something, it's the first thing you do.
Yeah.
You're like, what? Good.
Does it become a -7 or a +7?
Look at the signs. Which one's bigger?
Oh, okay.
Good question. Did you get it right?
Just
Excellent
I'm loving math.
right.
student. Total genius, right? You okay with this, Rebecca?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, let's do some multiply and divide. Y'all ready?
No,
I don't like it no more.
I don't like it no more.
I want you to remember in the fraction, 3/4, the line, what does the line mean?
Dividing them.
Okay, divide.
I
That
mean,
line,
yeah.
that line means to divide, right? And you need to keep that in mind. So now we might have, and this comes into what I told you yesterday. If I have, okay, now there's some stuff that you need to know. If you don't know yet, when two numbers or a number each other, it's an understood multiply. Okay, this is understood that 3 times the value of x. 3 times. If you see something that looks like this, or and these are crammed together, see, there's nothing in between. That means it's times, which would be -12. If something is crammed together, it's going to be multiplying. You're going to see a lot of it.
And usually the parentheses are the first ones to do. Or not. Depends on the
You are correct.
correction. I mean the
Equation. In PEMDAS, the parentheses you do first. And after we start this, we're going to switch over, not today.
Yeah.
But the next thing we're going to accomplish is the order of operations, and we use PEMDAS a lot. But in answer to your question, this is not the parentheses that they're talking about. If it has only one thing in the parentheses are only used for emphasis. That's not the PEMDAS parentheses. It'll only be if it has something else in it. This is the parentheses they're talking about in PEMDAS. And I'll be telling you that again when we get to order of operations. But in answer to your question, do you understand that? Okay, again, just to let you know, if two things are crammed together, it's multiply. I need you to remember this. Okay, so even with multiply and divide, the steps are the same. So first step is to put the line down. Second one is to circle the variables so you can focus on that side. Okay. Now, what I need to do in this one, before you might have 3 plus, so you knew what to do to get rid of it, right? We have to find out how the 3 and the x are connected. What operation is connecting those? If they're crammed together, what's the multiply? Okay? If this is multiply, remember in the add and subtract, we had to do the opposite operation? Yes, we're going to divide by what we want to get rid of. Now, we're not going to do the division sign out here because it's confusing later on. So we're going to use the fraction sign that means divide. Okay? This tells us we're going to divide by 3. So if I do that to one side, I have to do exactly the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to divide by 3. I'm going to separate the steps so I don't get confused. And I can keep my brain straight. Now, 3 divided by 3, anything divided by itself is?
0. 1.
Yes, you are exactly right. If you have a number divided by itself, it will always be 1. That's how this cancels out now in multiply and divide. So when we bring down our equation now, we only have a 1x, right? This is 1x. And just a minute ago, I told you that usually we talk about it being invisible. And so 1x is the same as x. We usually don't write it. So now I have x on this side, the equals goes on the line, and now I actually do the math. I have 15 divided by 3 is going to be 5. I know I'm finished because the variable is by itself. Easy At least 42, right?
Yeah.
Right? At least 42. Okay, if we got this down, and Mary, are you doing okay?
Yes, I'm doing fine. Thank you.
Okay, do you have any questions so far?
Yes. No,
Did you-
I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. You look like you feel better today, too.
Yeah, a little bit better. Thank you.
You don't have your COVID results yet?
No, I think till Monday.
Okay, just let us know. I'm glad you look good. I'm glad
Can
you're
I say
enjoying.
something?
Yes.
One,
Asking something.
Hi.
Linda, yes?
yeah, you were cutting in and out on the sounds,
Oh, dear.
so I don't know what it was.
Am I
But-
cutting out the whole time or just here lately?
Some of the time. I mean, the first operation was perfect, and then as you got to the most recent, the sounds would go in and out. Mary's nodding her head, so, but because I was trying to follow along. I mean, I was getting all of the operations, and I'm like, I love this, but then I couldn't hear you for some of that. And you can probably see it in your recording.
Hate that. I don't know what to do to fix it.
Yeah, I don't either.
When I
But-
listen to it back, I'll try to see if I can figure it out.
So I don't know whether,
Having that-
I don't know whether it's the position that you are taking when you face the board, the sound missed you.
Uh-huh.
Could be, I don't know.
Okay. Mary, are you having trouble with my sound going in and out?
Sometimes.
Okay, I'll have to work on that, but today I don't know what to do except just continue. Are you guys
You're
okay
good
with
though.
that?
I mean, we're following along fine, so. But I just wanted to let you know that that's what was happening for a little bit.
I appreciate that, Linda. Okay, let's do another one of those ones that just did. I won't change any numbers. So now let's do 2x equals. This again is a very simple problem, and you can probably tell me what x is already, but I want you to do the operations. I want you to follow the steps because you will be so glad later on. First step,
Draw your line.
line down through the equal sign. Second step,
Find your variable and circle it.
good. So we know what has to be gotten rid of. We want to get rid of the 2, and you ask yourself, how is the 2 connected to the variable?
It's times, so you have to divide.
Good. It's crammed together, so it's put together with multiply, so we know what our opposite operation has to be. We have to divide by 2. This line means divide. And whatever we do to one side has to be done to the other side. And we separate our steps. Remember that any number divided by itself will become 1. We have 1x here, but we don't write the 1. We just know it's there. Then on this side, we just do the division. So I have 12 divided by 2
Equals 6.
is 6.
We were subtracting?
No, you're
This
dividing.
means,
Oh, divide, that's right.
Mhm.
So basically, what times 12 gives, what times? How do you explain that?
this means
12 divided by 2 equals what? Yeah.
okay, one more, and then guess what? We're going to combine so we have 2 steps. No problem because you know how to do it. But I want you to do this one. Now, it's possible that you'll see it this way. Some people may put the parentheses around it just for emphasis, okay, because that's a -3, but you won't always see that. Okay, let's look at this because there's a couple of things I want to bring out to you. Nothing different. First step, line down through the equal sign and circle the variable. Now, this isn't -3. It's a -3. This is -3 times, because they're crammed together, which means now I need the opposite operation, which is
Divide by 3.
divide. Now, some students get mixed up here and they see this negative and they think they have to divide by a positive. Don't do that. We have to divide by what we want to get rid of. So we're going to divide by the -3. Do you see?
Mhm.
And whatever we do on that side has to be done on this side. Remember, if we have two negatives in a division problem, it makes
It's
it
a positive.
positive, and the 3 and the 3 cancel each other out. So after this step, I have 1x, which is exactly what I want.
Mhm.
And then I need to use your negative rules. We're going to divide 24
Into
divided
3.
by 3.
It's 8.
It's 8. And what's the sign?
Negative.
Negative. Why?
I don't know.
Because
Because there's only one
there's
negative.
only one negative.
It's the odd number of
Oh,
negatives,
okay.
remember?
So that's what confuses me, because and the last ones, it was the biggest number is going to be positive.
That was when we were adding and
Adding.
subtracting.
So this applies for just,
This is multiply and divide.
Right.
Remember, the rules were completely different.
okay.
Okay. And so even though the variable is on the right-hand side, it doesn't. Okay. And remember that if we are trying to get rid of a -3, we have to divide by the -3. Okay. We have to get rid of exactly what we want to get rid of. Or divide by what we want to get rid of. All right. Now that you know both of those, combining them is not a problem. We're going to use exactly the same steps we did. Exactly. And actually in the order that we did them. So let's do this one. 2x minus 5 equals, let's do 5. Same rules. So the very first thing we do is draw a line down through the equal sign and draw a circle around the x. Now, because we circled the variable, because we circled the variable, that makes us focus on this side of the equation. We know to get the x by itself down here, we have to get rid of all the other stragglers that are here, okay? We have to get rid of a -5, and we have to get rid of this 2. The order that you get rid of it is very, very important. Now, there's I have stupid stories, okay? So the scenario I think of here is that this is X's house, okay? And he has 2 people in the house that he needs to send home, okay? He has a -5 and he has a 2. Now, the way I remember which one to do first is look how close 2 is to the X. So he's the best friend to X. So the best friend usually stays the longest. So let's get rid of this straggler first. Okay? So do you guys see? Okay, it's important which one you do first. So we're going to get rid of the 5, and how do we do that? Add 5
to each side.
to each side because we have to keep it balanced. And we have a line. And so now we have a positive and a negative of the same number, and we know that zeroes out. And we're going to add straight down. So now we have 2x, because there's still 2x, equals 5 plus 5 is 10.
10.
Okay? But you notice
You
that I
start
told you you're finished when the X is by itself and the
itself.
X is not by itself. So now we move into our next one and we say, here's the X still. So what do I have to get rid of now?
The two.
two.
I have to get rid of the 2. Now, how is the 2 connected to the X?
Multiply, so you gotta divide.
Yes, it's multiply because they're crammed together. And so I have to divide to get rid of 2. Even best friends have to go home. So we're going to divide by 2.
So,
To both sides, right?
Yes, we have to balance by doing exactly the same thing to both sides, and we divide the steps. Okay? Anything divided by itself becomes 1. And now we have 1x equals on the line.
5.
10 divided by 2, and there's no signs here, so it's going to be positive 5. And we don't write the 1. So now you know you're finished because the X is by itself. What do y'all think?
It's a lowland.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Are you ready to practice?
No,
Irene, don't be a chicken.
I get lost when you do a worksheet.
That's okay. That's why I'm here for you
Okay,
to ask
that's fine.
questions.
Yeah, I'm
But
good.
this is the instruction. Now there is one more
Okay.
where you start with the division of the variable. Like it might be something like this. X divided by 7 plus 3
Mm-hmm.
equals 12. But I'm going to save this one for tomorrow
Okay.
because I want you to practice what we've done so far. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Any questions so far? Linda?
I'm good. I'm loving it.
Okay. Well, we're going to finish our Zoom today and sit down with some homework papers. Would you like for me to send you the homework papers that they'll be working on?
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
please.
Mary, I'll do the same for you.
Yes, please.
Mary,
Hi.
hola que te sientes más mejor.
Un poquito mejor. Gracias.
Sí, bendiciones.
Gracias. Thank you.
Okay, y'all. That's all for today. I will have this recording. I've
Okay.
figured out how to send a link to the recording if you want it. But you're welcome to log off now because we're going to stop the meeting.
Okay. Thank you. See you tomorrow.
You're welcome. See you tomorrow.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Are we coming to school on Labor Day?